Beste mevrouw van Tongeren, u was niet alleen een heldin uit de oorlog, want langzaam werd Jacoba van Tongeren een legende. Ook wel de bondkoningin. Met uw organisatie 2000 heeft u duizenden levens gered. U was slim, slimmer dan de nazi's. Dus ik ben vereerd dat ik deze brief mag schrijven aan u. Groet, Tim Dobben.
Ik weet dus dat er een inval, dat er een glazenwasser is geweest. Die heeft door het raam gekeken of er mensen in het huis waren. Toen er geen mensen waren, is er een vechtgroep, een knokploeg geweest. Die heeft getracht het huis binnen te komen om de kaartenbak te vinden. Toen is er een Duitser vanaf de etage achter een tafel opgedoken. En er is een vuurgevecht geweest. Die Duitser bleek, zeggen de stukken, een SD-man te zijn geweest, Werner. Die is omgekomen en daarna is...
She was carrying enough to get herself shot on sight. Inside her vest, custom made, stitched with hidden pockets, were hundreds of illegal food coupons. Each one meant life for someone in hiding. Jews, resistance fighters, children. If the Nazis caught her, they wouldn't ask questions. But they never suspected the quiet woman with sharp eyes and steady hands. Her name was Jacoba van Tongeren. To most, she was nobody. But to the people she saved, she was the reason they were still breathing. Jacoba led Group 2000, one of the most secretive resistance cells in the Netherlands. No one knew real names, only numbers. Hers, 2000. She didn't plant bombs or stage ambushes. She used stealth, structure, and silence, and helped over 4,500 people disappear from the Nazi radar. After the war, she vanished too. No fame, no credit, just files locked away and memories buried deep. Now her story is finally being told, not just as a forgotten footnote, but as one of the most brilliant and courageous acts of resistance in Dutch history. She learned to disappear before she ever needed to. As a young girl in the Dutch East Indies, Jacoba van Tongeren moved through military compounds like a ghost, quiet, obedient, invisible. Her father was a high-ranking army officer. Rules were law. Secrets were normal. Emotions were kept behind locked doors. By 13, she had already mastered the art of silence. When her family returned to the Netherlands in 1916, Jacoba entered a country on edge, wounded by the Great War and bracing for the next. While other girls learned piano and manners, Jacoba studied human behavior. She trained as a nurse, learned first aid, listened more than she spoke. But illness stopped her studies, and life took another turn. She found her way into the church, not as a nun, but as a strategist. The Dutch Reformed Church became her cover, her community, and eventually, her supply chain. What no one saw was how she absorbed everything. How power works, how people trust, how to move between worlds unnoticed. Then came 1940. The Nazis rolled into the Netherlands. Resistance groups scrambled for weapons, hiding places, safe routes. Jacoba didn't scramble. She planned. She didn't yell. She watched. And she didn't wait for someone to tell her what to do. All the lessons, from a military father, a religious mother, a life spent on the edges, were about to be put to use. Not in a field hospital, not in prayer, but in a resistance network no one would see coming. The knock on her door came at night. A friend, pale, shaking. His wife and 2 children had gone into hiding, but the food coupons had run out. Without them, they'd be dead within a week. He begged Jacoba for help. She didn't say yes. She didn't say anything. She just stood up, walked to her coat, and left. The next morning, she returned with enough coupons to feed them for a month. That was the beginning. Jacoba van Tongeren didn't set out to lead a resistance group. But as the Nazi grip tightened around Amsterdam, she realized silence alone wouldn't save lives. Action would. Precise, controlled action. So she built a network, not of fighters, but of ghosts. She called it Group 2000. Most resistance groups worked in chaos. Jacoba did the opposite. Everyone had a number. No names, no unnecessary contact, no personal stories. If one person got caught, they couldn't expose the others, because they didn't know them. Her code system was genius. Even under torture, no one could give the Nazis a full picture. And while the Nazis hunted for explosives, Jacoba was quietly smuggling thousands of food coupons, false IDs, and ration books across the city. By late 1942, her group had grown to nearly 140 members. Pastors, nurses, postmen, even police officers. All anonymous, all loyal. They delivered help to over 4,500 people in hiding. Jews, resistance fighters, political enemies. Anyone the Nazis wanted to erase, Group 2000 kept alive. And Jacoba? She walked straight into enemy offices. To the outside world, she was a harmless church worker. No one ever searched her vest. No one suspected the coupon queen was standing right in front of them. What she built was more than a network. It was a machine. Efficient, quiet, invisible, and entirely run by a woman no one remembered after the war. She walked into the Sicherheitsdienst office with thousands of lives hidden under her coat. Jacoba van Tongeren looked calm, polite, proper. But beneath her tailored clothes was a custom vest lined with secret pockets, stuffed with food coupons, forged ID cards, and documents that could mean life or death. One mistake, one suspicious glance, and she'd be tortured or shot. But she didn't flinch. She nodded politely, handed in a form, and walked out. The Nazis never knew. Group 2000 wasn't a typical resistance movement. They didn't blow up railways or assassinate officers. They fought with structure, silence, and absolute discipline. Formed in 1940 by Jacoba herself, the group was built like a military unit, something she learned from her father, a Dutch army colonel. Everyone in the group had a 4-digit number. No names, no personal details. Jacoba was 2000. If someone was arrested, they couldn't betray the others because they didn't know who they were. While other resistance groups struggled with chaos and exposure, Group 2000 became a silent machine. Under Jacoba's command, they helped more than 4,500 people: Jews, resistance fighters, Jehovah's Witnesses, homosexuals, and anyone the Nazis marked for arrest or deportation. At the center of it all was her vest, stitched with hidden pockets, designed to move information and supplies right past German checkpoints. She carried forged documents, ration cards, food stamps, all critical for people in hiding. Her ability to do this undetected earned her the nickname Bonnenkoningin, the coupon queen. The network grew fast. By late 1942, she had over 140 members: pastors, postal workers, doctors, nurses, even police officers. All anonymous, all operating by code. Group 2000 didn't just help those in Amsterdam. They reached beyond, delivering aid to places like Westerbork, Bergen-Belsen, and Theresienstadt. Collaborating with others like Gertrude Weissmuller-Meyer, they sent packages into the heart of the camps. When larger resistance organizations tried to bring her group under their command, Jacoba refused. Too risky. She feared their looser methods would expose her people. Her refusal kept Group 2000 safe, hidden, and highly effective. Then came March 1945. The Sicherheitsdienst raided their hideout and seized a coded archive, a list of every person Group 2000 had helped. But thanks to Jacoba's encryption system, the Nazis couldn't read it. The list sat useless in their hands. No arrests followed. They never caught her, never broke her. Jacoba ran one of the most disciplined resistance operations in Europe, without guns, without violence, and without ever being seen. Her work remained a secret for decades. It wasn't until her nephew, philosopher Paul van Tongeren, published her wartime diaries in 2015 that the full scale of her operation came to light. She didn't leave behind medals. She left behind a legacy of quiet brilliance, and thousands of people who lived because she chose to stay invisible. When the war ended, there were no parades for Jacoba van Tongeren. No speeches, no medals, no newspaper headlines. She had led one of the most successful resistance networks in the Netherlands, saving over 4,500 lives. And yet, when peace returned, she went home alone. Her group, Group 2000, had been so secret, so airtight, that even the Dutch government barely knew it existed. The coded records were impossible to read. There were no witnesses lining up to speak for her. And Jacoba, she didn't talk. She never claimed credit. She didn't write to the papers. She simply resumed her quiet life as a social worker, helping wounded veterans and traumatized families, while history forgot she had already saved thousands. Years passed. Her health began to fail. By the early 1950s, she was chronically ill and mostly bedridden, suffering from exhaustion and recurring infections that had haunted her since the war. The woman who once walked fearlessly through Nazi checkpoints now lived out her final years in quiet isolation. She died on September 15, 1967, in Bergen, North Holland. No headlines, no monuments, just silence. The same tool she had once used to fight the Nazis. For decades, her story remained buried. Until 2015, when her nephew, philosopher Paul van Tongeren, discovered her wartime notebooks, meticulous records written in code. As he decoded her work and uncovered old resistance contacts, the truth came into focus. His aunt hadn't just been brave. She had masterminded a resistance group so secure, so well run, it had survived the war untouched. That same year, he published a book titled Jacoba van Tongeren, de onbekende verzetshelden van Groep 2000. Suddenly, the puzzle pieces fit. Her brilliance couldn't be denied any longer. In 2021, Amsterdam unveiled a statue in her honor. A bronze figure in motion, coat flowing, walking forward. Still quiet, still unnoticed by many, but finally seen. Jacoba didn't fight for recognition. She fought for people. And while she died without applause, the legacy she left behind still breathes through every child, every grandchild, of those 4,500 she helped save. Jacoba van Tongeren never held a weapon. She never stood on a podium, but her war was won in silence, and her legacy is one of the most extraordinary in Europe's resistance history. Her methods were revolutionary. She didn't rely on strength or firepower. She relied on precision, privacy, and total discipline. Group 2000 didn't fall apart under pressure like many others. It stayed intact, invisible, untouched, and effective until the very end. That structure, built in secrecy, is now studied as one of the most secure resistance models of the Second World War. But even more powerful than her strategy was her refusal to center herself. In an era when women were pushed to the background, Jacoba didn't push forward. She stayed in the margins, not out of weakness, but because she understood something most don't. When the mission is survival, ego gets people killed. She didn't need credit. She needed results. Her name never appeared in history books, until her own family unearthed it. Her story became proof of how many heroes die unheard, and how many women did everything right, and were still erased. Today, her legacy is finally being honored, but it took over 70 years. A statue stands in Amsterdam, not grand or towering, but quiet, just like her. Her coded ledgers are now part of public archives, and historians are starting to include her name alongside better-known resistance leaders. But more important than the statues or street names is this: thousands of people are alive today because Jacoba van Tongeren existed. Entire bloodlines continued because of one woman who operated in silence. She showed the world that resistance doesn't always look like combat. Sometimes, it looks like a woman walking calmly through enemy lines, a vest full of fake papers and ration cards close to her heart, while history forgets her name. Until now.